the last 4 or 5 years of the TV and Video Insider Summit, we've always profited by including direct-to-consumer brands. They obviously really have their finger on leveraging data-driven and performance-oriented video. And as a lot of these brands are maturing and bringing that sensibility, that discipline into other screens like OTT and TV, linear TV, they have a lot to teach us. And SmileDirectClub is one of those brands that I think many of you now find very familiar, and you're seeing across all available screens. And that points to the success that our next guest, CMO John Sheldon, has had. He's has a very data-driven approach to his media buying, especially as brand awareness grows and as he takes it onto more traditional video venues. John, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Where do we find you today? Where are you based?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, home of course, of country music, but also SmileDirectClub.
Okay, and the ice storms are over, and you've got your power and your hot water.
Yeah, we happen to have all our facilities.
So as I mentioned, I think one of the things that fascinates almost all, especially traditional brands with the D2Cs, is the ways in which they're migrating their online digital, especially their video discipline, onto other screens. So let's start with an overview of where SmileDirect is in its brand trajectory and growth, and particularly how the media plan, the video part of the media plan, has evolved accordingly.
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to you guys. For those of you who don't know, SmileDirectClub is the largest doctor-directed telehealth company focused on oral health, including teeth straightening. And we've helped over 1.3 million customers get a straighter smile. SmileDirectClub has been advertising really with video in earnest for just over 4 years. So we're really young in this whole process. And when we started, we were really just a DR company. Our TV was really straight DR, very classic, click to go to the site, kind of stuff. And we relied heavily on paid social, and to some extent we still do. As a transformational brand, video helps us tell these stories of transformation that's essential to who we are and proving our credibility and our efficacy, right? As a transformational brand, whether it's the stories of Chimani, who's a late 20-something vet, begins her ad by saying, SmileDirectClub changed my life, or Madeline, an adorable young teen girl that breaks into tears because she's so excited at being given our impression kit to start her treatment by parents. These are the stories that help signal exactly what our brand stands for, which is democratizing access to that smile you'll love using telehealth.
But how has the media plan evolved? I mean, you said you started and you still do rely a great deal on those social channels, but we're all seeing you now on all of our other screens. So tell us what the plan has been in terms of where you're buying now and how that reflects how the brand itself is growing and where you see it going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're kind of everywhere, right? Whether it's TV or TikTok or anywhere else that we can find our target audience. We're looking to be present in those places, and TV plays a huge role, and OTT and connected TV play a huge role in that for our business, and it's one of the faster growing areas of our overall media mix, and it will continue to be. We're still, less than half of our spend is in that space. Most of it still sits in the kind of the digital side, but this is now growing really rapidly, and we're up now around almost 40% of our spend, on kind of these classic and then OTT and connected TV spaces for our video advertising.
And what are the key metrics that you're using to measure growth? Share of voice, where are you, and who do you compete against?
Yeah, obviously, our space is really challenging because our big competitor has kind of got the Kleenex brand in the space in Invisalign, and we have completely different models. Obviously, we're going directly to consumer, and we have a value proposition story that we're trying to tell. From a metric standpoint, of course, we're looking at aided and unaided awareness, but we're also looking very hard at making our allocation decisions based on both top-down and bottom-up metrics, right? So we leverage MMM as our guideposts on a periodic basis to make sure we're not losing sight of the big picture with how we allocate our dollars. But then it's really easy to tweak and focus on today's sales, but of course, 15% of our sales are coming from leads that were 24 months ago, right? But you have a complex sale, it's $2,000, insurance is involved, and you're sticking this piece of plastic in your body for 4 to 6 months to straighten your teeth. And so we need to be able to tell our story over time to build up that credibility and the trust that you're going to get the results that we provide, which is great. And that long-term view of MMM really helps that. But at the same time, we're working with our performance agency on a weekly basis, tweaking our mix, tweaking our day parts, deciding what creatives we want to run and where the money will be best spent. And it's hard because the measurement tools between CTV and OTT and TV are all a little bit different. And so we use MMM to help us create a set of factors to kind of normalize across them so we can move the monies where we're seeing the best performance. I expect that we'll continue to spend up in TV. It'll become a larger and larger portion of our spend over time.
In the last year, what have been sort of the biggest changes in your allocation?
Well, let's just take a half step back and talk about the biggest changes in our business, right? Okay. We had 400 locations a year ago, and they basically got shut down for a while. And we've been slowly adding them back, and we now have about 83 in the US and 100 and something globally. So we had to shift overnight from being go to our shops to get a scan, was 90%, and 10% people worked with our at-home impression kit, to overnight, basically 100% on that impression kit. And again, we're slowly leveling it back out and sitting roughly now at about 50-50. So, that kind of agility in the business is really important. And we had to reflect that in the messaging that we were putting out into the market. So we had, one of our best performing ads was, "What's a smile shop?" Well, when you don't have smile shops, you got to pull that stuff down. And so, good news is we had plenty of other assets to be able to, go out and run as we stepped back up into TV and beyond. The good news is, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the good news for our brand is the things that were major headwinds for us as we were coming out of the gate as a disruptor, right? Particularly if you just take acceptance of telehealth, have become tailwinds for us as a result of all of this activity with COVID. And so now we're able to kind of skip over having to tell that part of our story and go right to some of the core value propositions we have, but also doing a lot more brand building as a part of our messaging. So
in this last year, then, was it beyond a creative shift because of, obviously, you had to account for the change in the consumer journey? Was there also a media channel shift? I mean, does that mean that you were moving into or out of more linear OTT, going back to social? How did the mix change?
Yeah, while we were kind of making our agile adjustment, we took TV down to much lower levels just to make sure we wanted to keep some brand going and make sure people had the recall. However, we were still adjusting the business, and we didn't want to spend into not being able to drive people to action. But at the same time, that ramped up again as we started opening up shops, come May and June. We're able to kind of open up the shops and bring people back in. And so TV came kind of back to the levels that it was previously. And we're now at a allocation that's more TV than kind of we were before we went into the COVID time period.
Now, you had, when we talked about this before, you had mentioned that CPM is core to the ways in which you make your allocation decisions. Tell me about that, how you use and think about CPM as sort of the main metric that you're following. And is that just using CPM as a way to back into CPA, which DSCs are so famous for, or are you just simply taking a different approach?
Yeah, obviously we look at our CAC, right? We want to know what our cost to acquire is, and ultimately everything comes down to what is the CAC associated with acquiring those customers, and where did they come from, and so on. CPM is really just a shortcut because we know below a certain CPM we can deliver efficiency nearly every time, right? It's only a first look metric when we look to evaluate opportunities. But we go far beyond CPM in evaluating opportunities, but starts with, are we going to be able to get there from here? And the CPMs help give us a head start on thinking about that.
Has that been closing you out of any channels? I mean, one of the things that I hear from a lot of people is that CPMs, especially in OTT, have gone sort of went a little wacky during the last year. Did you find that using a CPM sort of closes you out of channels you'd like to be in?
Yeah, there are places that honestly we can't make it work because the CPMs don't work, and so what we've even, but even in that realm, like let's say when Peacock Network opened up, we went in there and tried to see if we could make that work for our business, and we're testing those things to determine on an ongoing basis whether or not the CPMs within those different channels is going to work for us.
Mm-hmm. So which ones are proving most efficient for you now? As you look at the mix and you're seeing where you're realizing the greatest efficiencies, especially in video, where are you seeing it?
I mean, we've had terrific success, and I'm sure anybody who's been on Hulu has seen us, and we've had terrific success with Hulu. It's been extremely strong. Mm-hmm. And of course, we do a ton of work in tier 2 and tier 3 networks on TV and have a tremendous amount of success in those places. And even on the Premier side, we ran with our SEC program this year and feel really great about how that performed as well. It's good to be in that kind of environment of network viewing. I mean, as I see us in the future, really starting to play more and more in those high profile spots, which I know start to come with some of these CPMs that we're talking about. But, I think there's smart placements for us where there are premium properties where the family is together, teens and parents, for appointment viewing in particular. And that's an area I'm really interested in.
And is that stuff that you're measuring as precisely, or do you sort of have a more holistic view of that kind of spend, that you've got a particular aim in mind? You're not entirely sure you're going to really be able to measure that impact, but it's definitely a place that you want to be.
So we do a lot of different measurements around those larger programs to make sure that we feel like they're delivering on the awareness that we're interested in, on the differentiation that we're interested in. We work with Phoenix Marketing International, which is a research organization that helps us to get a better visibility to how we're performing.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about formats a bit, because we started by talking about how video is so important to your brand because you've got a more complicated story to tell than most.
We do.
So you have to explain a category to somebody. So tell me about where you are in terms of what formats you're favoring and what's working most for you and what you've been discovering lately, especially as you're playing across all these different video channels.
Yeah, on TV, 15s work the best. All right. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've that audience we've been talking to the longest, and they generally know who our brand is now. And so all we have to do is really remind them about our key value propositions, and they move and perform for us in meaningful ways. OTT, CTV is much more on the 30s side. We're hitting net new audiences who are thinking about us for the first time. We have to tell a little bit longer version of our story. And in both places where we do brand work, we're doing that in the 30s kind of range. We've just launched our Choose Smile brand campaign to really focus on helping elevate how people think about our brand and what's important. And that takes a little bit more of a storytelling approach and so for that, we use more of that 30s style format. Of course, in the digital environment, we're cutting stuff down and doing bespoke work specifically. Actually, one of the most interesting things in that space, I know this is not the topic area, but just quickly, is we're actually starting to do really interesting long form work in paid social, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, and actually really seeing that make a difference for us.
Like in which particular social channels?
Excuse me?
Which social channels?
Right now, we've launched it in Facebook.
So what sort of, how are you measuring that? Does that have a performance impact?
Yeah, that's on very, again, hardcore, strict performance basis.
Okay. So I think that's interesting. And obviously you're keeping a close eye on how your brand profile is rising. So you're doing a lot of brand surveys to get a sense of where you are, because as you rise, your whole media strategy is changing. You're tweaking it accordingly.
Absolutely. We're tweaking our media strategy very regularly as we're getting new information. Again, we're so young, we're learning so much about what works, what generates traffic, what generates leads, what generates sales. And by the way, all three of those are very important to me. And we have meetings and metric reviews that just focus on one part of that funnel along the way in order for us to make sure that we have that continuous stream. Like I said, 15% of our customers are coming from 24 months ago as leads. And so that lead funnel really does need to be constantly fed. And by the way, there are critical media elements that help do that for us.
And so how are you making the decision and the tension that in that perennial tension between brand spend and performance spend? Yesterday I spoke at length with Reebok about this very question, about how they're making that overall overarching allocation decision as to how much you really should be spending on branding versus performance.
Yeah, we're stepping into it is the short answer. And we're using our MMM work to really help us uncover the peripheral effect that the brand work has on the rest of the channels. And we're having some early successes there for sure. And I feel great about that. By one example, we did a bunch of, I would call it brand work as it relates to our new oral care line that we launched in Walmart last year. Our whitening product is the #1 whitening product, whitening SKU in Walmart right now. And that work actually had a really critical downstream effect on our aligner products and people getting teeth straightening. So, it's interesting how pushing here actually lifted this boat.
Yeah, that's fascinating, but I want to drill into that in a second, but I want to signal to our audience, remind everybody, if you have questions, raise your hand or send a note in the chat window, and we'll get to you in a second. So this idea that product development has a discernible marketing and even media impact, I find is really fascinating. What did you learn out of that? And as you move forward, are you thinking in those terms, how product and distribution actually can start having an impact on other parts of your media plan and brand awareness?
Absolutely. I mean, our launch of our whitening in Walmart was absolutely for the purposes being in 6,000 Walmarts where, hundreds of millions of Americans walk by each day. We had a big 7-foot blurple display sitting there. It's like a giant out-of-home billboard. On top of that, the products are really good, right? And so, getting those in people's hands to get to understand what our brand is all about can be really powerful. And so, that's one element of it. The other element is, as an innovative brand, a disruptive brand, product innovation gives us what we need to continue to showcase, just why what we're doing is new and different, right? We just launched our Comfort Sense piece, for example, which is a proprietary approach to making teeth straightening the process a lot easier on our club members. It's a combination of material science improvements and treatment planning strategies that make the movement of teeth more gentle. And so, more comfort means more people completing treatment successfully. And that's what we really want, right? Getting that net results, because then they'll go tell their friends and really helps build our reputation in the marketplace. And then we also get to showcase the results in our media to validate that we really are the most advanced way to straighten your smile.
I find that fascinating. I want to bring Lisa in our questions, but I think that point, something that I've spoken to a lot of people over the last year about, is even though we knew intellectually how important retail and physical presence and visual presence out of home was important to maintaining and growing brand, it's not until that got turned off that I think we really appreciated how important that is in the marketing mix.
The funny part, Steve, is that's exactly when we launched. We literally launched in Walmart on March 15th. Can you imagine?
But you were in a venue, you were in one of those few venues that people were still actively going to and shopping at.
It helps, right? For sure.
I'm sorry, that was just fascinating, but go ahead, Lisa.
Well, where were you when I was growing up? Okay, I had to wear metal braces for a couple of years.
Well, actually, as you get older, of course, your teeth start to crowd again. Mine have actually on the bottoms, and I'm about to go into treatment again because that happens as you get older, particularly also with pregnant women. So a lot of our customers, 90% of our customers today are adults, most of whom had braces as kids.
Well, mine are still okay, so.
All right, good to go, Lisa.
But no, we do have a couple of questions. The first one actually is, have branding creatives or performance creatives been more successful on OTT?
On performance, probably I would say performance creative on OTT. We're really primarily focusing our branding work on TV itself. We have done a couple tests and seen it perform fairly well, but mostly our branding work has gone to TV to start.
Okay, and we also have Freddie. You have a question for John?
Yeah, me again. Thank you. John, I love listening to you, and I mean, your ads are great. The question I had was, sort of, do you know what it is that made Hulu specifically, or makes Hulu specifically so successful for you? And how do you measure Hulu success specifically? Is it brand studies or some other KPI?
No, we're using a number of technologies that allow us to connect directly to the identity graph and know specifically if the person who saw this is the person who's come to our site and the person who's bought the product. We have a really direct connection there through a couple of different tools. So, that's how we know it's working so well. The second piece is, they had early on, they had the scale. And so they've enabled us to really work to get their algos in place to find the right customers that are going to work for us. And so by working with Hulu, on that and finding the right inventories, we've been able to really make it work.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have another question here from Eileen. Let's see. Do you want to ask? I don't think she's on. Okay, so question.
I'm here. Yeah, so I was just curious if UGC performed better on certain platforms than others.
It's funny. It performs better at a certain point in the funnel. UGC works great for us in our DR spots, and we use it, as you probably know, quite a lot. And it's a great way in this environment to get production done because the content's already there for you, and it's just about putting it into the right framework and giving it context. And so, we've had really great success wrapping UGC content, in our branding in meaningful ways. I mean, some of the best work we've done this year has been in leveraging some of the key aspects of like Byron Sharp's thinking about how brands are built, where we've been building our smile arc into the work. And we've been building, or we have now, you probably have heard it, we have a sonic mnemonic that we play at the end of every one of our spots now, or almost all of our spots. We're getting it through everything. And we have our own stable now of music that we've got. I've got this song called Check Out the New Me that I literally walk around my house singing anyway, and because I like it. And so, all of these elements come together to really build the brand, right? You can see the iconic blurple that we have all over our advertising as well. And so you do all those things together and you really start to build brands effectively. And what we're doing with the UGC, just to button hook this, is wrapping, these messages in UGC contextually in our branding to be able to tell our story.
Great. And so we have another question. You're a popular guy here today, John. Megan has a question for you.
Great, thank you. Which identity graph partners are you working with for measurement over CTV?
We use a couple. Probably the one. Why am I just completely blanking? I mean, we've done some work with Nielsen, and we've also done some work with Newstar. Sorry, that was the one that we primarily work with Newstar.
Thank you.
And we also have one more question from Nicole. What tools are the best for tracking if the person watching the ad is the same buying the product?
Well, again, that's that identity graph piece I was just talking about. And those players work with different tools. Our DR buying agency is called Horizon Media, and they use a tool called Connect, works really well for OTT. And we have a different methodology that we've used with them around measuring kind of the spike that comes when we run TV, and we evaluate that all the way down to kind of the cost per spike new user sale, and are we getting those users to come in and buy? And so we work with our agency to kind of get that measurement done through those tools.
Okay, great. And actually one more just came in from Marina. Let's see. How do you balance the weight of appointment program viewing versus audience buying regardless of program?
We are way overweighted today to audience buying, no doubt about it. And we're just stepping into appointment viewing pieces. We've had a few key partnerships that have worked quite well for us. The work with the SEC is a great example of that. We've done some work with the Grammys in the past as well. And so we're just kind of learning as a business about what versions of those really work for us to drive traffic to the site and brand awareness to the business.
Okay, well.
Well, I think that's a wrap. John,
That's a
you have made good on the TV and Video Insider Summit tradition that whenever we bring in a D2C, they always teach us something new.
All right, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you, John.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, John. Bye.
Bye.